So another instalment here at the YKJ Mud Pond. Now finally, I say finally, last year it was fine, but this year our feeding hoop was drifting all over the place, and what I've done now with it is, instead of just having it wired as it was before, it's now wired in 4 places, so it's centralized to the feeder, although it doesn't look like it from this angle, but it is. It's centralized to the feeder, and then the 2 wires at the back basically stop it from swinging around. It's spring loaded as well, so if the water level, right now the pond is at its normal running level, it's at its full level, so it will pretty much run through the summer where it is now. However, if we do have a little bit of excess rain and it picks up a little bit, it's not going to be a problem. And likewise, if the level drops, which it will periodically, it might drop 3 or 4 cm. It won't really drop any more than that, but if it drops 3 or 4 cm, the springs will allow the whole hoop to drop with it. Give you a closer view. What does happen as well when they are feeding, even though there's a feeding hoop there, when the fish, as you can see, they come up and they suddenly turn within the hoop, it causes a wash of water that either fires pellets out of the water over the hoop, or an undertow of water that pulls pellets underneath the hoop. So some pellets, although the wind can't blow them outside from the hoop area, the fish themselves can effectively push the pellets out. So consequently, the fish are actually just outside that area picking off the stray pellets. It's actually not very long until their next timed feed. The next timed feed is 12 o'clock, and we are now 11:27. But it's not going to do them any harm to get this little bonus treat, as it were. Fish are looking really nice now. They've settled down lovely into the pond. Skin conditions becoming much brighter. Actual behaviour of the fish is important, like how fast they're breathing. That's important. Obviously making sure that they are using both gills, not having one pet turtle fin clamped up, that kind of thing. These are all very important observations. The water now, the water quality is, or water colour after the rain of last Sunday, the colour of the water is now coming back to normal, and in another couple of days I think it will be pretty much the look that it will have all the way through summer, provided there's no more heavy rain. That does make it a little bit easier to actually check the condition of the fish. It's not clear by any means, but that little bit of extra clarity does make life easier for me. Now, historically speaking, koi raising in days of old, I mean, until very recent years, was basically all done in mountain mud ponds like this, mud ponds like they have in Niigata. And I think this is something that is very, very important to remember. Years ago, and I would say certainly up until perhaps 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more in only 1 or 2 cases as far as other koi farms are concerned, historically fish have always been raised in these mud pond environments, from basically toe size through until jumbo, and then picked up in the autumn from the mud ponds and kept indoors over winter. And in most cases, most of the breeders that would pick up fish and put them into their fish houses over winter actually would hold at like 12 degrees, or in some cases even lower, and not feed the fish at all between autumn and the following spring. And this was really common practice. And to be fair, in most cases it still is. Most breeders aren't geared up for raising fish indoors. There's only a few breeders that really are at the forefront of fame and fortune in the koi industry, as it were, that have the ability to raise fish really well in indoor ponds. Now, where I'm going with this is that people sometimes say that the water for keeping koi, raising koi, like in concrete ponds for example, is not really so important, but actually you need to keep it in context of how fish have been raised over the years, and this is where it's all happened. Water in these mud ponds is incredibly soft. Water in fish houses can't match that water softness. Now, also, some areas of Japan, the water chemistry is different, granted. Some areas that are more volcanic have a tendency to have more zinc and iron in the water, and also some other metals to some degree, but zinc and iron really being the main ones. Or the other way around, really, iron being the main one. Now, so some water in some areas has got more like metal content, but actually as far as a mud pond is concerned, it's basically the same scenario. It's all, like in this case, this water is coming down off the mountains. It's not actually really picking up any iron or zinc, but having said that, this area has very low levels of iron and zinc anyway. But if you go down into some areas further west from this in Japan, then iron levels, zinc levels are kind of elevated, but on the mud pond it's not the case, only really where fish are kept indoors over winter. So when you kind of hear some people say, oh, water doesn't really matter, and whatever you've got with you should use, just make do with it, it's certainly not the case. It's far from it. Like I say, this is the water that fish over the years has become really genetically adapted to or adjusted to. And in my experience, in the UK as a koi dealer, the people that could grow koi jumbo and keep them in nice condition were only in certain areas, and that was no coincidence. It was like either sort of Somerset down into Cornwall or Wales, or very much further up north, that people could naturally keep koi very well and raise koi really well, and nobody really knew why back in the days. But in recent years, as some of you viewers will know, since we really got on to reverse osmosis and trying to control the pH on ponds, that I think has made a huge difference for the koi hobbies. It's kind of really brought that scope of raising fish into more or less anybody's hands, really. So using that equipment, it's certainly possible to try and not replicate mud ponds as such, but certainly get very close to it. Now, that I think is very important to remember. Now, in years of old, I've even heard some breeders say that, oh, water doesn't really matter, and oh, if it's harder water, it just brings a sumi up. It's better for sumi, or Europe's better for sumi, that kind of thing. But in actual fact, breeders have never tried hard water. They have no idea, and they've all basically used what they've got and taken it for granted that, oh, well, fish grow, they do okay, and that's fine. So it is really important to keep that in context and remember that if you're thinking about raising koi in your own pond. Now, What I'm doing at our fish house in YKJ Japan, a lot of breeders have said to me, I say a lot, several breeders have said to me that the whole thing is what they say is mottainai. Mottainai basically means a waste of money. Like for example, using fiberglass on the ponds. Breeders have said to me, oh, it's a waste of money, just use paint. Paint will last 3, maybe 5 years before you need to redo it, it's good enough. To my mind, the fish stay in there permanently, or not so much permanently, but the water stays in those ponds permanently. And there's no opportunity to drain the ponds down and repaint. So for me, fiberglass was the only way to go. Now, mottainai, or waste of money, applies to a lot of things that I've done. The filtration that we've done is particularly expensive. Using drum filters is expensive. The whole running cost with the turnover rate that we're running is very, very expensive as well. Now, breeders will say to me, oh, mottainai, you don't need it, that kind of thing. But to me, if something is going to give me even 10% a year of extra gain in terms of growth, condition of fish, then that 10% is not a waste of money. To me, it's worth every last penny. So I think in reality, mottainai, that phrase in Japan is applied so many to so many things that people regard as being kind of frivolous with money, just throwing money around. You know, they kind of feel that way about it. And Japanese people, they don't like waste of money at all, and they will count every last yen. They'll count everything that they can save. I mean, it doesn't stop them from kind of lavishing money on something that they want. It's like hobby things, that kind of thing can cost a lot of money, and for them that's fine. But the basic thing is that when it comes to running a koi business is a business. It needs to make money. It needs to pay for everyone's salaries. It needs to be self-sufficient. So breeders can't go throwing money at doing things that I'm trying to do, because for them it kind of ruins their success. For me, not doing it ruins my success. So what I mean is, from a breeder's point of view, if their running costs are too high, the business can't really thrive, survive, grow, that kind of thing. For me, if the running costs are lower, it means basically I can't achieve what I want to achieve, and then the image I'm trying to create or what I'm trying to do with koi will never happen. So to me, I can't compromise. And if something is costing me 10% more than it could do, then mottainai it may be. For me, it's not. It's value for money. So whilst this mud pond and other mud ponds are really good for raising fish, mud ponds do work really well in building up body on younger fish. So they do give fish a really good head start. But I think after that, like Sanzai onwards, I think concrete ponds, if you really manage them well, concrete ponds can work extremely well and get results that really you can't get in a mud pond. Because mud ponds are fantastic, but when it comes to finishing fish up and building body up and getting them in the right condition, I think it's in that regard, in concrete ponds, it's much easier to do. So anyway, sorry for the ramble. I hope you've made it through until the end, and see you in another day or two. Thanks for watching.